What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have this shockingly epic duo of Gengar and Toucannon in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that's on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of the cards individually, and I'll talk about why this combination works so well and why you should think about checking this deck out. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Without further ado, let's talk about Gengar and Toucannon in Pokemon TCG Pocket. First, I want to note that this deck isn't going to be a high damage dealer. This is going to be a deck that you want to get your Pokemon out quickly. You can slow them down a little bit, of course. You can see the Gengar I'm utilizing, which is the Gengar with Hypno Blast that puts Pokemon to sleep. But this deck is going to be more about getting your Pokemon out quickly and hitting your opponent quickly. Now, if the battle does drag on a little bit, you're still going to have some tricks up your sleeve to win the match. This deck can do well either hitting early or hitting late, although hitting earlier is better, especially with the Pokemon in this deck. However, you can still drag the battle out a little bit thanks to Gengar and Hypno Blast and still end up winning. Let's talk about each of these individual cards, and of course I'm going to talk about Gengar first because Gengar is one of my favorite Pokemon. I've mentioned it before, but I always try to have decks around Gengar because he's my go-to, not just in Pokemon TCG Pocket, but in any Pokemon media around. I go with Gengar first, or at least try to. So let's talk about Gengar, and this is of course the Gengar that has Hypno Blast. For 2 Psychic Energy, you have Hypno Blast, which is hitting for 70 damage. So it's pretty good, only 2 energy required for 70 damage, but your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. That's pretty important because you can drag a battle out if you need to and win the match with Gengar. Of course, you're going to have to be lucky enough to hit a couple of sleeps. Sleep in general, you get a 50-50 chance of delaying your opponent from attacking. So you hit them with Hypno Blast, you get that 70 damage, and then your opponent is now asleep. So in that active slot at the end of your turn, after you do hit them with Hypno Blast, they get a coin flip. If the coin flip is heads, they are no longer asleep and they can attack. If it's tails, they're not going to be able to attack. Of course, they can evolve or utilize an item such as Pokemon Center Lady to get rid of the sleep, or they can draw that Pokemon back onto the bench. So there are ways around a status condition. However, if they do keep that Pokemon in the active slot and you are able to keep them asleep, you can delay them from attacking. So that's why Hypno Blast can really work well regardless of if it's at the beginning of battle or at the end of battle. If you're able to hit that sleep, of course, it's a 50-50 chance that you're delaying your opponent from attacking, barring any switching or cards. 50-50 chance, like I just hit for there, and you're going to be able to delay your opponent from attacking and potentially win the battle that way. So I do love this Gengar with Hypno Blast because it can delay the battle, delay your opponent from attacking, and keep your Gengar alive. On top of that, this isn't an EX Pokemon, so if you do end up losing your Gengar, it's only going to cost you 1 point. This is a deck that doesn't have any EX Pokemon in it. So whether you lose 1 or 2 of your Pokemon, you're still going to be able to attack throughout the battle, not have to worry about really building up energy on your Pokemon, because as you can see, Gengar, only 2 energy for Hypno Blast, hitting for 70 and asleep, and Toucannon is only 1 energy, hitting for 70. So that's really nice. That's one of the benefits of this deck, is it doesn't require a lot of energy. The opponent can hit you with a Team Rocket Grunt, and it's not going to affect you too much. You can also pull cards later in the match and not have to worry too much about building up energy. If you pull a Toucannon at the end of the match, you only need 1 energy to attack with it, so it's not going to be too deadly to yourself if you don't pull your Toucannon until a little bit later, because you only need that 1 energy. Now let's talk about the rest of the Gengar line. I do have 2 of those Gengars. I have 1 Haunter. This is going to be the Haunter from the Genetic Apex Mewtwo, because for only 1 energy, it hits Will-O-Wisp with 30. Of course, that's only 1 Haunter. And the Gengar I'm talking about, because there are multiple Gengars in the game, this is actually the 3rd Gengar. There's 1 Gengar EX. There's another Gengar. This is the 3rd Gengar. This is going to be the one with Hypnoblast. This is going to be from the Triumphant Light packs. So be on the lookout for this Gengar in the Triumphant Light packs. The Haunter and Ghastly are going to be the ones from the Genetic Apex Mewtwo packs. The reason why I go with them, Ghastly, just for 1 Psychic Energy, you can hit for 20, or 1 Ghost Energy, whichever one you want to call it. You can hit for 1 energy, and then same with Haunter, just 1 energy you can hit for 30 if you do end up evolving into Haunter. But there are 2 rare candies in this deck, so you may not need to evolve into Haunter. Next, let's talk about our next line of Pokemon, our Toucannon line. And I just mentioned Toucannon briefly earlier, but let's talk more in depth about Toucannon. Toucannon, for 1 colorless energy, has Drill Peck for 70. This is absolutely fantastic, especially when coupled with rare candy, because you can deal quick damage to your opponent's Pokemon before they're even ready to attack you. Whether they're building up energy, whether they're trying to find that evolution, Toucannon is great to hit really quickly, not just at the beginning of battle, but at the end of battle as well. I mentioned that even if you pull your Toucannon later in the match, or you don't pull your Toucannon line until later in the match, what's nice about Toucannon is it doesn't take a lot to set up. You just have to have your Picky Peck out there. If your Picky Peck is out there, you pull rare candy, you pull your Toucannon, you can easily evolve 1 energy on your Toucannon, and you can start attacking for 70. So that's really nice. It can hit really quick. I found a lot of success hitting really quick, whether it's at the beginning of the match or at the end of the match. Hitting quick can sometimes be crucial. While your opponent's trying to build up energy, you're just hitting them for 70 because you're hitting them really quickly. That's why this deck works really well, is because you can hit really quickly. Gengar only requires 2 Ghost Energy. Toucannon only requires 1 colorless energy, so you can hit really quick. All you have to do is evolve and you're hitting really quick, and Gengar has an added bonus of putting your opponent's Pokemon to sleep so you can delay them from attacking you. So this combination works really well in the fact that you can hit really quick, and 70 damage is really decent. You're not going to 1-hit KO a lot of fully evolved Pokemon or a lot of EX Pokemon, but you can 2-hit KO a lot of Pokemon, and with the added bonus of putting your opponent to sleep, you're going to be able to delay them from attacking you and take out a lot of beefy Pokemon. So now Toucannon, for those of you who don't know, you're going to find this in the Celestial Guardians packs, either the Lunala or the Solgaleo packs. Either one, you can find your Toucannon. I'm going to have 1 of the Trumbeak, which is a colorless energy glide for 30 damage. You can also find in either of the Celestial Guardians packs. And then 2 of the Picky Pecks, 1 colorless energy for Peck for 20 damage, also in the Celestial Guardians packs. I love these 2 Pokemon combination. They work really well with each other for the fact that you can hit really quick, and also the fact that Gengar can put your opponent to sleep, which is going to prevent damage from your opponent onto your Gengar in that active slot. So it's really fun and can hit really quick, which is why this combination is so good. You can really get to your opponent early before they're able to get set up. Let's talk about some of the other cards in this deck that really make this work. Rare Candy, I've already talked about. I talked about in combination with Toucannon, but also with Gengar. The fact that Rare Candy, you choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a Stage 2 card, in this case, it's Gengar or Toucannon, in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, you put that card onto the basic Pokemon to evolve it, skipping the Stage 1. And this is why you only need 1 Haunter or 1 Trumbeak, because the Rare Candy is going to take place of the other one, of the Stage 1 of both of these evolution chains. So you only need 1 from each of the evolution chain. Of course, you can't use the rare candy during your first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was put into play this turn. However, this can get your Pokemon attacking really quickly. You put out your Pikipek first turn, you have a rare candy and a Toucannon in your hand. On your second turn, you're going to be attacking for 70 damage, which is really going to catch your opponent off guard. It's going to be doing a lot of damage. You might be able to take out an opponent's Pokemon before they can evolve, or you can start really doing some big damage to an EX Pokemon before that EX Pokemon gets enough energy on them to do anything. That's why I love Toucannon, but Gengar, pretty much the same, only 2 energy for Hypnoblast. You're hitting for 70, but you're also putting their opponent or your opponent to sleep, so they can't attack you if they do get set up a little quickly, or if they do have enough energy to attack. You're putting them to sleep so you don't have to worry about taking any damage. So rare candy is going to be crucial in this deck. Of course, a couple of other cards that can get to your cards quicker. You're going to have your Pokeball, which is you're going to put 1 random basic Pokemon into your hand. And then Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. This deck is really going to be about getting set up quicker than your opponent and attacking quicker than your opponent. Again, you can still win if the battle goes on for a little bit, as long as you take out your opponent's Pokemon that has all of the energy built up on it, because you don't have to worry too much about equipping a lot of energy, but you're going to really want to attack quickly. So I'm trying to get my cards into my hand as quickly as possible so I can evolve into the Toucannon and the Gengar, and I can attack as quickly as possible. That's why I put Pokemon Communication in here. Choose a Pokemon in your hand and you switch it with a random Pokemon in your deck. So if you do have a couple of rare candies in your hand already, you have a Ghastly and a Pikipek on the field, maybe you want to try and get your Gengar or Toucannon, and that's what Pokemon Communication is going to do. You can sacrifice a card that you may not need in your hand, trying to pull that Gengar or Toucannon from the deck to your hand so you can start attacking as fastly as possible with your stage 2 evolutions as quickly as possible. So of course, that's going to be huge from a winning perspective. Attacking as quickly as possible. So Pokemon Communication is going to help you get there to your evolutions where you need to be. Last but not least, I have Cyrus in this deck. Cyrus is going to be pretty important for a couple of reasons. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this deck's strength is attacking early and quickly. It's not going to be about dealing damage. The most damage we're going to deal in this deck is 70. If we're lucky enough to hit a weakness with Gengar, it's going to be 90. But that's the most we're going to be dealing. Of course, normal type Pokemon don't hit a weakness, so Toucannon's only going to be dealing 70. So Gengar can hit for 90 if we're hitting a weakness. That's going to be it. You're going to give your opponent with this deck a lot of opportunities to retreat their Pokemon. Cyrus is going to be there to pull out the weakened Pokemon from the bench so you can hit them in that active slot. Of course, Gengar, going to put your opponent to sleep, is going to entice your opponents even more to put their active Pokemon on the bench to get rid of that sleep. So Cyrus is going to be nice to drag out those weakened Pokemon and to finish them off, whether it's with your Gengar, whether it's with your Toucannon. Cyrus is going to be pretty crucial for this deck because you're not dealing a lot of damage to finish off your opponent's Pokemon. You're going to be hitting 2 or 3 times to finish off some of those beefier Pokemon. So it's going to be important to have Cyrus as a part of this deck. For those of you who don't know, Cyrus, you take a Pokemon that does have damage on it from your opponent's bench and you put it to the active slot. And Cyrus is going to be found in the Space-Time Smackdown Palkia packs, so be on the lookout for that. Your rare candy is going to be in either of your Celestial Guardians packs. I love this deck. It hits really quick and can really catch your opponents off guard. And you can see in the clip that I'm playing right now, it's going to avoid that Oricorio wall that a lot of trainers like to use. Oricorio is a great card. For those of you who don't know, Oricorio, the electric type Oricorio, has the ability that it prevents all damage from EX Pokemon. This deck, the Gengar Toucannon deck, does not have any EX Pokemon, so you're going to avoid any of that walling that Oricorio can do against EX Pokemon, which is really nice. Oricorio is prominent, it's a very good Pokemon, but it only serves well against decks that have EX Pokemon. If you have a deck that doesn't have an EX Pokemon like this deck, you're going to be able to take out Oricorio fairly easily because it does only have 70 damage, and Gengar and Toucannon both deal 70 damage, which is pretty nice. What's also nice about this deck is that it does hit quick, it does catch your opponent off guard. You don't have any EX Pokemon in this deck. EX Pokemon you always have to be careful with, because if your opponent takes out your EX Pokemon, you're dropping 2 points, which can set your opponent up nicely for a win. This deck, regardless of if you drop one of your Pokemon, Toucannon or Gengar, it's not going to set you back too much. You're only going to drop a point, while you can build up some of your other Pokemon on the bench. You can get a second Gengar, or you can get a second Toucannon. You're not going to have to worry about dropping one of them. And again, like I said, these Pokemon are really easy to not just hit quickly, but they also only require minimal amount of energy. Toucannon with 1 energy, Gengar with 2. So it's not too hard to build up energy on these Pokemon, putting them on the bench. There are a lot of Pokemon that require some form of setup or a little bit of time to build up on the bench. So if you don't get those Pokemon until later in the match, it may hinder you from dealing damage and winning the match. However, because these cards don't take a lot of energy, they're pretty easy to set up regardless the point of match that you're in. It could be the beginning of the match, it could be the end of the match. It's pretty easy to get these Pokemon rolling and at full steam, which can lend itself to allowing you to victory a lot easier than some opponents. Putting enemies to sleep can really turn the tide of battle, because as you can see here, my opponent's going to have to worry about not just overcoming their sleep once, but overcoming their sleep twice, because the Magnezone wouldn't be able to have killed my Gengar with 1 hit. It would have had to do 2 hits. So it would have had to overcome my Gengar's Hypnoblast twice, which is nice for me in terms of preventing my opponent from attacking, because as I mentioned earlier, Hypnoblast, putting your enemy to sleep, you have a 50-50 chance that they're going to stay asleep. It's a coin flip, so it's a 50-50 chance, meaning that I have a really good chance of at least preventing them from attacking at least once. And you can see my opponent on their bench, they don't have any energy equipped, so doing this prevents my opponent from attacking me, which is going to keep my Gengar in the match longer, which is going to allow me to have my way with the match, deal damage where I need to, and eventually take out my opponents as I need to. It's also going to allow me to delay my opponent so I could get the cards from my deck into my hand and onto the playing field, so I can get that Toucannon set up, or I can get that second Gengar set up and really deal damage. Even if I lose one of my Pokemon, I'm still getting the next wave of my Pokemon ready for the end of the match, which is really nice. Again, doesn't require a lot of energy to set up either of these Pokemon. I love this build. Not many people are doing it, of course. It's not very flashy, doesn't have a lot of EX Pokemon, but it really works. It's really fun, and if you love Gengar like I do, it's another Gengar deck that you can utilize to defeat your opponents and really have some fun with it. Let me know in the comments section if you're going to utilize this deck. Is Gengar one of your favorite Pokemon like me? Maybe you love Toucannon. Toucannon is a pretty cool Pokemon. I mean, look at that picture. He is extremely serious about attacking your opponents. This is a really cool deck. Let me know if you're going to utilize it. If you're going to put together a deck similar, this Gengar Hypnoblast plus Toucannon, what cards are you going to switch out? What cards are you going to put in? Let me know in the comments section. Let's talk anything Pokemon TCG in the comments section. I love this game. I love Pokemon in general. I can't wait for the next pack to drop, which is going to be in a few days. and I am excited to make some build videos around that pack that's coming out. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much in advance for doing so, and until next time, peace.